Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. We're back out here this afternoon messing around with the 66 Roadster. We haven't had as much time to play with this because we've had a really busy spring in the shop and we've got several busy weeks ahead of us. But one thing that I didn't want to waste any more time on is getting the fluids changed and pulling the plugs and getting some Marvel Mystery Oil down in the cylinders. Before we start the engine, we'll turn it over by hand, but it would be great to have some lubrication down in there, and Marvel Mystery Oil is just the right thing. So before we pull the plugs, though, we've got to clean out this valley. The plugs get a lot of gunk down in those little holes they rest in. There you can see some seeds and some mouse droppings, lots of dirt. So first we'll clean that all out, then we'll pull the plugs, then we'll go ahead and put that Marvel Mystery Oil down in there. All right, I've been taking this parts cleaning brush, jamming it down in there like that, kind of stabbing it a little bit, and then I come in here with the shop vac and really vacuum it up. Got to get as much of that out of there as we can. All right, it's all cleaned up. We sprayed some WD-40 on there, scrubbed it around. There's probably better penetrants to use, and we are now going to remove the number one spark plug. This has been in here for 50 years. I don't know how hard it's going to be to get this out, but I think it's just going to come right loose. Ready? Oh, she's putting up a little resistance. There she goes. Broke loose. Let's see what she looks like. That is looking pretty good. It's looking just about perfect. All right, let's get the rest out. All right, we've got everything all cleaned out here. Take a look. We've vacuumed it, we shop vacuumed it, we scraped down in there while my son Cooper held a shop vac over it, almost like a dentist, so that anything that got scraped off went up in the shop vac. Had one cylinder, and it was actually this one here, number 4, where it felt like maybe some carbon was going up in there. So we'll have to see what's going on there. But otherwise, everything looks great. All the plugs look great. And we are now going to put some Marvel Mystery Oil in each cylinder. I know this looks like a lot, and it is, but it's not going to hurt anything. It'll all blow out after we crank it, and I want this well lubricated. So here we go. All right, we've just got to do that 5 more times, and then we will stick the plugs back in. And that'll probably be it for today, but this will be done and soaking. Okay, so mission accomplished. All the plugs came out nice and easy. This is all cleaned up. We've got, I don't know, 1/4 cup of Marvel Mystery Oil in every cylinder. Everything looked good. Didn't see any breakage or anything like that. So now, while we're busy at the shop, that can just be sitting in there, soaking down through the rings, and everything will maybe be loosened up a little bit, but at least lubricated when we start to turn this over. Okay, let's take a look at the seats, which I've been working on here for about a week. Last weekend, I took the passenger seat out and started working on it. But before we talk about that, a few weeks ago, these were those 68 seats. And I asked around a couple different people for help. I got some good advice and some bad advice. So I want to talk about that. Now, I thought I was going to use the bottom of the 68 seat to replace the bottom of the driver's seat here. But that is not going to work for several different reasons. Number one, you can see where this just goes straight back on the 66. And also, it is leather on the top and the side. But on the 68, the back is kind of tapered in. Now, you really can't see that in this shot. You can actually see it more over here. The back is tapered in, and even though this is different, this is vinyl instead of like the moquette or the mohair. I'm not really sure which one's right. The sides are vinyl on this. Now, so that kind of killed that. And then I thought, all right, well, I'll use this section in here to replace this section in here, because I think that this is actually going to be okay. And I can bring this piece back to life. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, I use the 68 seats to start out almost as like a practice. And I did want to loosen up that driver's seat when I thought I was going to use it. Well, the person who gave me advice at first started in on the driver's seat. And what they told me to do was put neat's foot oil on it twice a day. They said, you don't have to clean it first or anything. Just start putting tons of neat's foot oil on it. I dropped it off with them, and they did that twice a day for a week. When I came back to pick it up, it looked softer, it looked better, and I thought we were on our way. So I went up to the local saddlery place. We live in a really big horse area here. I talked to them about it, and I went up there to get some neat's foot oil, and they said, do not use that. Use this instead. All right, here it is. Now, this stuff was not cheap, but one good omen was it comes from Germany, which, you know, this car really has a history with Germany. But the neat's foot oil is ground up cow hooves and shin bones. This stuff over here is plant-based. It's jojoba oil, coconut oil, sunflower oil, lanolin, and beeswax. So the woman there said you want to scrub them down as best you can with a good tack cleaner, and that's this here. This is a Belvoir tack cleaner. And by the way, I don't get anything out of any of this. I'm just telling you what worked for me. So this one over here, I cleaned up with the tack cleaner myself, and then I put the German leather oil on it, which was just a mix of all those plant-based oils. Now, you can see how this one is really shiny, and it just doesn't look quite right. This has had so many applications of that neat's foot oil, and I did put a little bit of the better oil on top last weekend. This one has been thoroughly cleaned and then had one application of this other leather oil, and it is already way better than this one. And this has that shiny finish that I just don't think is going to work. She also said the neat's foot oil can rot the stitching, and it smells bad over time. And then when I tried to smooth things out, this just cracked. So this is not going well, but it did serve its see, really right here you can really see that difference. It really served its purpose in a good practice session to make sure that I get this done right. So now, over here, I have the seats from this car. Here is the right hand, here is the left hand. I haven't touched the left hand yet, but the right hand, I have cleaned it with this stuff right here and a little water, and that was it. And then I have been putting this stuff on every 3 days. And I just put on my third application. You can see it's a little wet in some spots. I took this over to the saddlery place this afternoon, and she said it still looks thirsty. Those were her exact words. So she said, go ahead and put the rest of the bottle on. So this one's going to get a whole bottle, and it just soaks it right in. And so I bought another bottle for this one. I'm going to loosen this all up, do the best I can with it. And then there's actually some Amish leather shops close by. I'm going to see what they can do for me with repairing this. But here's where we are right now. There's a before and after. And this isn't really the after on this. It needs about another week of applications with this leather oil. And then it's going to get this top coat stuff, which I haven't even picked up yet. They were out of the kind she wanted me to get. But there's no dyeing there, nothing. And you can see the left hand, which is the driver's seat over here in the US, it has a lot more patina and wear. This really softened things up. You can see like this is soft down here, but up here it's a lot harder. Well, this used to be like that, and it really is softening up nicely. And one thing I did do, I picked this up on the internet, was I purchased this little, I don't know whether it is a piece of furniture caster. I got it at the steel place. They have a lot of casters there. And then I just rolled this like this to kind of loosen these leather fibers, just gently. And that's when it ripped that 68 seat. But before I'm getting ready to clean this left-hand seat, so before I did, I wanted to go through all this and show you the before and after. One last thing I forgot to mention. Here are the chrome side hinges for the seats. Some people call these hockey sticks, but this is how they came off. I have not done a thing with these yet. And they are just in beautiful condition. They're the nicest ones I've ever seen. And chrome polish is going to clean them right up. Look at the original screws. I mean, everything on this car is just perfect and just comes apart with just slightest little twist. It really is like brand new. Okay, we've had the Marble Mystery Oil in the cylinders for a week now. I'm glad I stopped what I was doing and got that done, because now that is just sitting in there soaking. The next thing I want to do is drain the oil in here and put some new oil in. We're going to change the filter. We'll drain the oil out. We'll put some nice new oil in. Typically, I would run a 2050 Castrol. That's what I run in my 67 over here. But to get the ball rolling in this, I did some research, and when you're starting an old engine like this, you're better off to use a thinner oil. So we are going to use Castrol 1030 just to get things moving, lubricated, get a thinner oil in there, and start that circulating around. The only thing about this car that is not bone stock is this right here. This is a France oil cleaner. Bill installed this, and I would have preferred that he didn't drill 2 holes in the frame rail, but that's okay. God knows I did it enough as a kid. But this is an oil cleaner, not to be confused with an oil filter. The oil filter, which is right there, everything in here is really dirty, and it's all going to get cleaned up. But on the oil filter, you are running all of the oil that goes through the engine through the filter at all times. And so you can only get out particles of a certain size. If you make the filter too small for a higher level of filtration, you're going to cut down the oil pressure, and it won't even work. But what this does is it takes a feed off of the oil sending unit for the gauge and puts just a small amount of pressurized oil through this cleaner, which actually has a roll of toilet paper in it, believe it or not. And that oil comes out spotless, but only a very small percentage of it. But after you run the engine for a few hours, all of the oil has managed to go through there at some point. The oil in this engine is 50 years old, and it is spotless. And I will show you that when we drain it. But first, I want to take this oil cleaner apart, clean it all out, because it's plumbed into the system, and as soon as we crank it up, oil's going to start going through it. All right, here it is open, and as you can see, it's just got a roll of toilet paper in it, which I cannot get out. It is moving, but it is in there tight. I assume it swells up after it gets oil in it. So stay tuned. I will get that out somehow. Well, this thing sure is cleaning up pretty nicely. I thought it would. Now this is the rustier side here. And it, you know, it's not perfect chrome because it's just a little aftermarket thing from the 60s. But look at the top. So just a little elbow grease and she comes right up. And I'm hoping that's how the rest of this car turns out too. All right, this afternoon we've got the car over here on the lift. We're going to run it up and drain this oil out of there. We're also going to get a chance to take a look at the underside of the car for the first time, and I am pretty excited about that. But before we drain the oil, I want to show you what it looks like. It is very clean, and I think that's because of the oil cleaner that Bill put on here. Now, yesterday, I pulled the roll of toilet paper out of there, and it looked just like a roll of toilet paper soaked full of oil. Put in a new roll, and then I did clean all of the rust off of that, so now it's the shiniest thing on the car. But if we go ahead and pull the dipstick out, and you've got to actually reach down and push the speedo cable out of the way a little bit, just from the factory routing, you can take a look at the oil here, and you can see that it's dark. It's kind of a golden brown, and it does smell like an antique car, but not that bad. Okay, I've already cracked this loose. Let's go ahead and take this out. And again, this is the first time this has been drained in my lifetime. There it goes. It's not quite as clean looking from this angle. There's 50 years of used oil coming out, and we are going to freshen this up. All right, now that it's a thinner stream, and it's tough to catch on camera, but from this angle you can see it's pretty clear. All right, as you can see, I've pulled the bolt out of the oil filter canister, and now I'm going to pull that off, I think. Oh, she's being a little stubborn. I don't think I can do it with my left hand. I don't want to hurt anything. There we go. All right. Here it comes. And we're just going to fish it out through here because the air cleaner was already off. And there it is. It's one of the felt filters that you would often see back in the day, and that's pretty much what I expected. All right, here's the oil canister here, and whoopsie, there's the original style felt. I know he's changed the oil, so that's not the original filter. And then in here we've got a plate and some springs and the bolt. And so let's get this all cleaned up, and then we're going to put in a new filter. All right, I do want to show this if I can. There's kind of a grayish sludge in here. It's not too bad. See it down in there? Oh, there's a good shot. And that looks to be like an ashy deposit. And I haven't seen this in a long, long time. And you used to get this if you used like oils from Pennsylvania, Quaker State or Pennzoil, apparently there was a lot of ash in those oils, and that goes way, way back. Hey, this is Chuck. This is probably going to go in the middle of the movie, and it's been a few weeks. Things have been going by, and I've just been trying to get the oil changed, work on the seats some. We've been so busy at the shop, so I'm doing a little here, a little there. But I did have a chance to get back in front of the camera today and show you a couple things. So here we go. This is the oil canister. You can see a lot of the paint has come off, and there's some rust there. I cleaned it up very gently with soap and water. I did not remove any of that paint. That's how it was. Can you see in there all right? Yeah, it's pretty clean down in there. What's interesting is I've seen these for years in parts boxes and old E-types, and they always have this kind of cool light green hammer tone finish to them. here's something I didn't know. Look at this. That is the original color, which is light blue. And it looks that way because we've got a rubber seal under here that's been protecting it for 50 years. So if you wonder what the true original color of these is, that's it, light blue. So I've got all my pieces washed up. This had the felt filter in it, and we showed you that when it came apart. We are going to replace it with a more modern, it's actually not that modern, they had these back in the day too, but this is a paper element that is inside of this little aluminum case. This is a Wix filter, 51183. What's interesting is this came with the car. Bill had this in his box of parts. This one's 50 years old, from 1971. See how it's got an impression here? It's stamped right in there. And now here's the modern one. Very similar, but doesn't have that stamp. And then the insides are a little bit different on each one, but it's basically the same. So it's very cool. So instead of using that, that'll just kind of go with the tools and everything. We're going to use this now for our initial startup. I have been working on the seats. They're over here. I've spoken to OSJI. They're going to take this in and they're going to attempt to fix this as it is. They can restitch this all up. You can't restitch that, but he said he's going to try to pull this together a little bit. I don't really know if that's going to work out. They said they might have some older takeoff seat covers that they can use parts from or whatever. I've been putting this oil on it every 3 days, and I think we're just about done. Here is the driver's back. Here's the passenger's back. And they're much softer now. Actually, the driver's is looking even a little better. I don't know why it has these little indentations in it. And those came out once I started softening it up. But they're working out very well. I have put this whole thing went into the passenger seat. So this whole thing went into these two pieces. And it has changed the feel of them drastically. So this is working out pretty well. All right, we are now going to go ahead and put the filter back on the car and fill it back up. Okay, the oil has been drained out. Put the plug back in. The plug looks great. The threads are great. So many E-type plugs get stripped. The one in my 67 over there is all stripped out and has a rubber stopper in it, some crazy contraption. The car was in Bill's father's barn for several years. This, I think, is an oil-soaked chicken feather. There are little bits of hay and mud all over the place under here and cobwebs. But before they moved into their new house, it was in the barn for a few years. And I guess there were also chickens in there. All right. We've got the filter back on, and we're going to go ahead and fill it back up with new oil. You can see I'm using 1030 for the initial startup. Normally I run 2050 in these cars, but here we're going to use 1030 so it's nice and thin and gets moving around quickly. And then after we get it started and running, we will change that out for our normal 2050. So now all you guys can see me spill it, if I do spill it. Oh, there we go. Now you got to be careful not to go in too fast because it's got to fill up this cam cover valley and then run down through into the front with the timing chain. And there are some drain holes here as well. But when you have a thicker oil, you can overflow this and it'll come right out of your fill hole. All right, the next thing we've got to do is figure out what's going on with the carburetors. Now, when I first brought the car home, I played around with this a little bit, and so I know that there are some problems. One of the first things you do is just reach in here and pull the plungers out and see if they need some oil. And this one's still got oil on it, which is a good sign. It's a little sticky. It feels like it's got maybe a ridge of gunk on it or something. So we need to figure out what's going on there. See, and it doesn't want to screw down in there without too much force. So, okay, not too bad. Then we get to the second carb, and now we got a problem because this is stuck. This is actually part of the piston. So the piston is moving up and down inside the carb and inside the dash pot, which is what you call this, pretty easily, but that should not be stuck in there. So that's a problem. And then on the last one, she's actually pretty free and pretty normal. So what we're going to do is take all three dash pots off, pull the pistons out, clean everything. You don't want to use any kind of abrasive whatsoever. I've been told that the pistons are matched to the carbs for a nice, tight, smooth fit. So you just want to clean off any coagulated junk and get things freed up. So that's next. All right, I've pulled the dash pots and the pistons off of each carb. Here's number one. You can see this is the oil that came out of the, I don't know what you call this, but that's where the little plunger goes. That was pretty coagulated and dirty, so it's no wonder this one was a little sticky. This I was able to just pop apart with my hands just by yanking on it once I had it off, and that had no oil in it. And then here's number three, which was the smoothest one, and as you can see, it still had some good oil in it. So we will clean this all up without using any type of abrasive whatsoever, but it looks like we've got a problem with all the jets being sunken down in the carb bodies. So that's going to be the next challenge. I imagine that rubber diaphragm at the bottom of the jet is hardened, and it looks like they are in the full choke position. And also the choke lever is not really doing anything. So that's what we're going to get into, I guess, for the next segment of this adventure. All right. Thanks for watching.